What up, cut up? I'd like to welcome everybody back to a very special uh, episode of A Poor Excuse for a Podcast. We're broadcasting live from the apocalypse. We've come out of hiatus in the middle of a pandemic to bring you a very special episode, once again, of A Poor Excuse for a Podcast. In case you all didn't know, there's a lot going on in America right now. Needless to say, the country is in a state of chaos. If we're being honest, there's a lot going on. COVID-19, also known as the coronavirus, has basically relegated a lot of us to our homes. And that's why we normally would, when we would do our podcast in person, we're kind of doing it via Zoom or we're doing it from separate locations. And aside from that, this particular episode is not even concerning a poor excuse for a book. This particular episode is dealing with current affairs. And even more specifically, it has to deal with race in America and being black in America, to be even more specific. So to get started, I have with me today a group of very good brothers. We're going to dive right into this conversation. And just to get the introductions underway, to start, I have with me my brother from another. Y'all should be familiar with him at this point, Tracy.
What
And I
up?
also have a very good brother, Steve.
Hey, what's going up, y'all?
And then I have my literal brother here, Marcus.
Stop.
All right. So once again, today we will be discussing a few topics, but to kind of put it in perspective, to give the viewers and listeners a little bit of background to what brings us here today. And once again, guys, please feel free to chime in as I kind of put this in the context and try to get all these details straight. For the past, what has it been? 2, maybe 3 months almost. The country has been in what we've been referring to as a state of quarantine, where anything that has been considered non-essential has basically been, for lack of a better term, shut down. And anyone who has been able to has been informed and forced to work from home. If your job is not a job that will allow you to work from home, you have lost that job. Unemployment has skyrocketed to highest that it's been since the Great Depression. The government is giving out what they're calling stimulus checks to pretty much every American citizen, ranging up to like $1,200 a month. Unemployment has been boosted to where it's paying better than some jobs are paying. We're just in an unprecedented time. As we kind of have been rolling through that for the past few months, it's starting to kind of attempting to wind down. And we are starting to come out of it slowly. But as we were doing that on May 25th in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a black man by the name of George Floyd was at a grocery store and was allegedly attempting to pay for his goods with a counterfeit $20 bill or a bad check for the amount of $20. The police were called on him. He was arrested, and in the process of that arrest, somehow, some way, he was pinned down onto the ground by 4 police officers. One police officer in particular had placed his knee onto the back of Mr. Floyd's neck and held it there for 8 minutes and 45 seconds. Mr. Floyd cried out for help. He advised the world and the officer around him that he could not breathe. This man cried out for his mother, who actually had already passed. So he was in dire straits. The officer did not remove his knee, and in the end, George Floyd was killed. George Floyd was murdered by this police officer. In America, this is not new. A number of African Americans have been killed by police in situations that mirror this, killed basically for being alleged of petty crimes, and as it has in the past. The African American community has thrown a fit, has become very, very upset. and a number of protests erupted around the country. And then some of these protests evolved into riots, and some of these riots evolved into looting and the burning of stores and property and things of that nature. So that's kind of the context of what brings us to our conversation today. Because what we are seeing here, even with the protests and the riots and the looting, I mean, that's been sparking a lot of conversation with social media. We're all so much more connected now. Everyone who can say something is saying something, and we're just seeing a lot of conversation about this much more now. Corporations around the world are weighing in. We're seeing a lot of involvement from the white community this particular time around. And this just seems so much different from the protests and things that we've had in the past. So we've gathered here today. I've got 4 Black men sitting here, and we're going to discuss this in detail. So we have an agenda. We have a topic list. I'm going to post these in the notes here of this particular episode. And whoever is watching or listening, if you all want to have this same conversation and hit the topics that we're discussing, you'll be able to review exactly kind of the points that we have touched on. But with no further ado, with the introduction out of the way, let's dive into part 1, which has been titled The Problem. And now that we have recapped the situation in itself, the first question I want to ask to the guys here is, how did we get here? All right, I want to throw out the question, how did we get here? America has descended into a state of chaos in nearly every way. Cities are burning across the country. Protests are being held worldwide. How and why have we gotten into such a state? And whoever wants to jump out into that first, feel free.
Yeah, I'll jump right in. I think this has been a long time coming. So, I mean, I think, you go back and you listen to some of the old adages and sayings of, when they said that the chickens will come home to roost. Right. I mean, we were at a place in race relations here in America that we never addressed. I mean, and I think that we're seeing what we have never addressed for 400 years plus of Black and white. This is not a people of color and anyone else.
Right.
This is a Black and white issue that we've seen that has been boiling since slavery, civil rights, Jim Crow, Barack Obama years, and now here we are here, that is just completely blown up. And I just think it was inevitable at some point that we would have gotten to this point.
I can't say I disagree. I can't say I disagree at all. Tracy, Mark, what do you guys say about how we got here to this particular point, to where they're burning down department stores? I mean, not only are they have held protests in every one of the 50 states in the U.S., and I believe also in 11 different countries around the world, to the point to where they're saying this is the largest, basically, like, civil rights protests in world history to this point.
Right.
What would you say has led to this moment?
I mean, yeah, I for sure agree. To be honest, since I've had my first encounter with racism, at that moment, I knew that this moment was going to happen. I think all of us had something in the back saying it's going to get to a tipping point where either it's going to get real ugly, real bad, as far as like race violence all around the country at once. I don't know if I ever thought it would be a protest, but I knew something would bubble ever since, being a child and having experience with sort of racism that you knew, that was going on. And then also, it's almost, I hate to say I told you so, but, it's like we laughed at for so many years of being, trying to describe sort of racism, because then you see, it's a feeling of, well, like it's almost like they're calling you a crybaby, or it's almost like can't be that way,
Right.
So I'm glad. I'm glad that we had some. I'll say I'm glad that at the misfortunes of Floyd, that Mr. Floyd, that this was able to come about in this type of way. As far as the looting is concerned, I mean, we seen these things go around, but it's true. Like, the Boston Tea Party coming here in the first place, and so I'm not concerned with any of those things. The only concern I have is the safety of our community, and avoiding unnecessary whatever it is. But it was brought to our front yard, so at the same time, I'm on the fence about you have to do what you have to do.
Okay, I'm definitely going to get into the protest in itself. So that's definitely a topic that we're going to delve into. But something that you said that that definitely hit the nail on the head is the subtlety of racism and spending years trying to describe or explain to the rest of society what is happening to the African American community and made to feel like you're crazy. Like, no, it can't be like that. No, it's your imagination. But now in this age of technology, when everyone has a mobile phone, and I think the quote is attributed to Will Smith, racism is not more prevalent. It's just being filmed now.
Oh, yeah.
And now people are just like, see, I told you. This is what they've been doing. I caught you. And it's kind of sad that it had to come to that point when it's like, why not believe me when I told you?
Right.
Mark, did you have anything to add to what made it come to this?
I think everybody said pretty much stole what I was going to say. Racism's been here forever. It's going to be here after all this settles down. It's going to be here. But what we have on our side is technology. When people, because look how many police officers probably killed Black men or Black women that wasn't videotaped.
Right.
That we've missed. And I think the videotape set everybody off, and people are tired. And you got to look at the age group that's protesting, probably the age group that's a little bit younger than my age, that's out here protesting, younger kids that sees this and that's tired of it. And then right now is that we're bringing awareness. Same thing King did back in the Civil Rights Movement. He used television to bring awareness. So it's bringing awareness to white folks, and hoping it's appealing to their conscience to see change needs to be made. Will it be appealed to our president? Probably not. But right now, we're in a time where everybody can see what's going on with African Americans, and we're being mistreated. I've been pulled over by police. I've been blackmailed. I've been pulled over by Black and white, and was discriminated against both race.
Right.
Black police officer, he because I had tinted windows, he pulled me over and thought I was a drug dealer. This is a Black guy.
Right.
And I went off. But my mom said, you're going to keep running that mouth and they're going to come get you. So now I'm a father of 2 boys. What I'm going to do when my boys start driving.
Right.
Or when they go out into the public, what I'm going to teach them, what they're going to have to do. Right. We don't want to buck dance and Uncle Tom around people, but what I'm going to teach them how to survive and how to make it home. So now my oldest son gets a chance to look at what's going on TV. He's a little baffled by it, but he could just see that we're protesting for things that's not right. It's not right to die over $20.
Right.
But one thing that happens that George Floyd situation has brought a spark to the world. When you see people protesting in Berlin and everywhere else, it's brought a realization that this stuff has to stop. Will it stop after this? Probably not. It's going to probably happen again. It's sad to say that, because long as you have white officers or in these uniforms who are probably ex-Klansmen, you don't know what their background is, what's in their head. How do they think about us?
Right.
Are they on edge every time they go out their house and they put their uniform on? Are they already on edge and just hoping they can have a confrontation with a Black person? You don't know if they're on edge, because they probably deal with a whole bunch of other police calls outside of what somebody getting pulled over. So right now, it's a teaching moment. This stuff has been out here for years. I don't think it's going to stop, but I think we hopefully can use it as a teaching moment to hopefully this will not continue to happen as much. But in my honest opinion, I think it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again, because
Sure.
We got white officers. It's gonna happen. So what can we do now as black men who has black sons, who have black daughters? What you gonna do now to be sure your kids make it home? And then if you're a mentor, if you're out here helping other youth, what are you gonna teach other youth who don't have solid parents to give them that knowledge so you can be protected? That's your issue right now. That's your issue right now.
And that kind of leads into my next question, because and the part 3 of our conversation is the solution. But what you're asking now kind of leads into my next question, which is who, if anyone, is to blame for where we are right now? Is it the police? Is it the criminal justice system? Is it the larger American society? And some people would say, is it black people? Is it how we have carried ourselves or branded ourselves? Now, I have a clear-cut stance on this, but I want to pose the question first. Who is to blame for where we are, for the state that we're in with race relations in the U.S.? I'll pose it that way.
This is, I'll take a stab at this. This is not, we're at a point where we're dealing with the problem, but we didn't start it. And this is the hard conversations that you have to have, whether you're in the workplace, at the water cooler, or in the neighborhood at your community. We never chose to come here. Like, we were brought here unjustly, have been treated unjustly since we got here. Right. And then now we have overcame, and just as important as we're talking about it, we use the word, it's in the media now, it's just racism. Racism isn't the only problem here. The problem is discrimination. The problem is prejudice. All of those things are all being bucketed into one racism discussion. Right. But this is not our problem. We never started, and we don't have the means to solve it. Like, we can't change someone's mind. Now, we can put legislation in to help fix it, but I can't change someone's heart on being racist. And I just think that's where we are now. It's not our problem to fix. We can challenge it, but we can't fix it ourselves.
Well, one thing I look at racism is a learned behavior. It's learned. You don't come out the womb and hate somebody because of the color of their skin. It has to be learned. And so what are parents teaching their children? Are they teaching them to hate black? Black is wrong. And I think that's where your start of racism is what is taught. We was taught not to hate white or black. We were just taught to understand that racism is out here. You're gonna have people that don't like you for the color of your skin. People ain't gonna like you for all different kind of reasons. But if you have pretty much white people that you've seen on social media who's saying the N-word multiple times on their social media page, that's taught. That's taught to put that out there. And that's what we have now with police officers who's probably taught to hate black people. And so anytime I get a chance, I can go get one of them or push one of them, just like the one that was pushed in, I forgot what city that the 75-year-old dude was pushed. Things are taught. Racism is hate. And when you taught hate, hate can go take you all kind of places. Just like that guy the police officer put his neck on George Floyd. That was taught. You was taught to hate. You knew this dude was hurting, but it was taught to hate, and he was taught to say, I'm gonna kill him. He didn't know the repercussion was gonna come from this. But in your mind, you're taught to say, I'm taught to hate. And as long as white America keep having them teachings of being taught to hate, this problem is gonna continue to be out here. So now, what do we do in this situation? I honestly don't know. I just know that racism is taught. And now, because you can see two pre-cool kids play, it's white and black, they ain't thinking about race. They not. But when we, like in the corporate setting, which I've never worked in a corporate setting, Marsha, Toya, they say it's there and it's prevalent. That racism is there in the corporate setting. I don't know if you get called the N-word, I don't know what it is. I'm not built for it. I'll lose it, I'll go off in 2 seconds. But I worked at a factory for nearly 20 years that I got called a boy. I got called a boy and I went off. Yeah. And I was ready to kill the white supervisor. And I said, if you call me a boy again, I'll kill you. And I was 22 at the time and I was dead serious. I killed him. But you got to look at, when I worked at there 20 years where black folks couldn't get promotions and the thing was hate there. I've seen the N-word on the bathroom walls. I've seen black folks. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen N-words on the wall. N-word, go home, go back to Africa, because people think these things. People think racism in their mind. So when you work in a factory where white folks get these good jobs because they can't do nothing else, they're not smart enough to go to college, but they can build an airplane and make 28 bucks an hour. But someone like me who was going to college, I was a threat. I had my school books cut up. No one knew that. I had my school books cut up. They ran a razor blade through my books to make me go off so I could get fired. I laughed at them. I said, I read my books. I don't even care. But I didn't let that stop me. But I've seen it firsthand that they said, let's try to get this black dude out of here because he can't control his emotions. I was suspended because in my mind, I called a white dude uneducated white trash. They gave me 3 days off of work for that.
They gave you 4 for that one.
I can't control it. I'll go off on it. So I knew that, but what did I learn the word white trash from? What you see. So that's how I went off. So I think now it's just teaching, and what kids learn today and what they see out here and what they're taught by their parents is where the racism come, and it's going to continue to happen. And that's why the teaching moment is your best weapon to get home, because you can't stop this powder keg that has exploded of racism. You can't stop it, but you can try to hope you find a way to contain it some way and help your children out.
Interesting.
Yeah, and yeah, to be honest, I really don't. I don't want to give any anecdotes because I don't want to feel like I'm preaching to the choir anyway. So we experienced it, but as far as who to blame, then it's absolutely the government, the infrastructure that we were brought into, and what it's developed into, including all of its progress. Because, well, I don't know if y'all been to Montgomery, Alabama yet, with the Legacy Museum, not with the tombstones hanging from the ceiling, but the actual museum where it's just loads and loads of information. I probably had my biggest learning curve in race relations with the U.S. when I went there. So I encourage you, all of you and everybody else who ever sees this, to please go there. And if you know white people that's interested, I would pay their way just about to go there to visit, because it's the information there. It's the statistical data and the legal precedents that were set just from our government having years and years of opportunity to give us aid, even when failing to give us aid previously were presented. It all failed like miserably by our government not being able to protect people that they brought here in the first place. And the graded sin that they call this, whatever it is, whatever that means, for what's going on in slavery and slavery again and again and again in different forms. But yeah, I'm 100%. It's about taking accountability. So all of us being from Nashville, we know about going downtown even when we were younger, and just all the different options we had to hop in a spot, get a drink, do whatever. So there's a guy on Facebook, there's a white dude on Facebook who posted, I guess, an honest moment about how he himself was used to pick black people out from getting in any clubs or bars up and down the Mumbai. So I sat back and I was happy. I was like, thank you. I just want you to acknowledge that I'm not insane. I want you to acknowledge that there's microaggressions, thousands of them that we face every single day. And it includes me wanting to go and get a drink and have fun with my friends. So that part I'm thankful for that. So, but anyway, not to go too far off, but it's about, I made that able to say I was thankful for just him saying, hey, yeah, I'm sorry, but I did that. Regardless of if he knows, if he cares about me thanking him, or if he's lying, it doesn't matter. I just want you to be honest about who you are and the choices that you made that came to evaluating someone else when you had the chance. So So when people can see how easy that was for him to make on probably hundreds of times every weekend for years, then I want them to understand that how easy it is for everything else to happen that way without any blink of an eye. So, but going back to the government, if they're not accepting what this is and portraying something else, then the media turns around and reinforces it, then all the stereotypes and everything else is going to be truth to a lot of white people and just in general. And I want to kind of. It was a video I saw. It was a young white girl. She was probably sophomore in high school or something. She was like, "Look, Mom and Dad, here's the numbers. This is what's going on. This is not right." But the mother and father just couldn't get past media propaganda statements like saying black on black crime. There's no such thing as or like saying that we kill ourselves when it's stupid. It has no foundation other than the media. And if the media isn't supported by what the government did or the lack of responsibility the government is taking for what's taking place, then it's just going to be an ever moving cycle of prejudice based on you having no idea what you're talking about. So.
And can I jump in, Tracy? I'm glad you brought that up. I think you brought up an excellent point there about, a lot of times I find myself on the backside here now having to even defend black people in this situation against black people. They always say, well, what about black on black crime? It's our fault. And if they would just listen to police officers, wait. You can't say, yeah, and it's not black on black. Black people do not inherently kill black people. We don't do that. It's a socio-economic issue. So if you go to Buckhead in Atlanta, black folks ain't killing black folks. Everybody driving Bentleys, and that's black people with money. That's what this looks like. But if you go to the worst trailer park that is all white and people are taking methamphetamines and all those things, they killing each other too. So it's more of a socioeconomic thing. Poor people kill poor people because they're trying to get more. It's not black people inherently killing black people. Like, we do not want to kill each other. I may want to kill Marcus every now and then, but I don't want to kill another black man. It's not inherent in us. That's not us.
You ain't big enough to take down the giant. You remember that? You ain't big enough. Still a kid. Can't take down the giant.
I think the biggest part is, so the mountain that we have to climb, it isn't changing laws. Well, let me say that's one of the mountains, but that's not the biggest mountain. I think that mountain is, and I hope it's not taken the wrong way, but is overall, in retrospect, it's more feasible than the other part where it's people's prejudice. Because myself, I'm a pessimistic when it comes to people after their foundations of what they believe in are set. I rarely believe that people not can change, but would use the information to everyday practice what you now know. Because as a privileged person, in which everybody has a level of privilege, so we're talking about what we mean privilege. So the privileged person that knows about our everyday our everyday the small things that happen to us, they know this. But they literally choose to say nothing, knowing that the repercussions are minimal in retrospect to what we have to face in dealing with the situation that we're, in at that moment. So I think as far as where we are right now is the more people I see that's really to make a real conversation about and say, you know what, man, I can see how that is something you dealt with every single day. Now, I still don't care, but let me acknowledge that. So I think that once we get to acknowledgement for real, and one last thing, I heard this thing about, they said, man, you know why black people, matter of fact, I posted it from Neil Brennan, the co-writer with Dave Chappelle, yeah. Dave Chappelle, he posted a video yesterday saying I'm a racist, and what he was saying is, I hope everybody can watch that. So the next day he posted another video saying, this is why I got a lot of feedback from white people saying, oh, you crazy, why you do that? And he said, because when I say stuff like that to my black friends, they say, thank you. I appreciate you for at least being honest about it. They don't say, well, now it's time for me to extend my revenge on this for my forefathers and try to take them out. It's more about just, hey, just tell me that I ain't crazy, because the government is going to tell you that I'm crazy, and then the media is going to back up the government and tell me that I'm crazy. And now I got to worry about looking at you every day when I clock in or get my McDonald's or whatever it is to say that I'm crazy too, just because you believe that. So if we can get to a spot where they believe that when we say keep it real, that's where it comes from. And I'm trying. So I credit Neil Brennan for saying that keeping it real came from us knowing the underlying tones that we have. And so when they can get to that level, when we say keep it real, they know what we're talking about. Then I'll be a little more optimistic about what's going on.
Right. And Steve actually said something that rung true with me on when you're speaking on racism. And when we're talking about racism, we're not just talking about racism, because when you say racism, people think Ku Klux Klan hood, or they think Adolf Hitler. They think this malicious, hateful monster. But that's not really all that racism is. When Black people think of racism, they think of those microaggressions. They think of those subtle things that you are doing where you have these preconceived notions to think that I want to steal something, or think that I want to do this, or think that I want to do that. Like that, all of that is racism. But I feel like when white people hear racism or racist, they think as long as I'm not wearing a Ku Klux Klan robe, then I'm not a racist.
Absolutely.
But the phrase that I actually learned very recently from LL Cool J is implicit bias. And that's the phrase that pays. And implicit bias is you have these very small preconceived notions and subconscious ideas and behaviors that are inherently racist. They are not, you know what I mean? They are not clocking people upside the head. They are not running people over with your car. They're not even denying bank loans outright, but they are looking at 2 job applications and seeing one has like a Black name and one has a traditional white name, and being like, I think this one looks better, even though they look exactly the same. That's implicit bias. And the fellow members of our society that are white, they have to examine themselves and see when they are applying this implicit bias. And then when they are able to examine themselves and check themselves when they are doing that, then we can make a bit more progress when it comes to racism. And we don't understand how much that holds us back.
And we're having 2 conversations, and I mean, in all these protests and all these riots, I think Black people are having a separate conversation with America than white people. Like white people, I think, are trying to solve, let's not kill any Black people on the streets. You know, that's what, like you said, that's what they see as racism. I woke up this morning, checked my phone, my email, and I got from everything I bought, every company that I bought something from in the last 12 months has we stand against racism. Started going through their websites and started going to check their board of directors and checking their CEOs, and there's no Black people there. So it's like,
what are you doing?
Yeah, it's like you're telling us that, hey, I stand against racism, but then you don't have any even Black friends on your board. I mean, there's 2 different conversations with America we're having, and we don't even realize we're marching at the same time, but what we're considering racism, what they're considering racism, is totally different. Yeah, so we got a long way to go.
Michael Shea just made they just start posting the joke of Black Lives Matter. Matter is the bare minimum. Like, matter is the bare minimum. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead.
It's minimum wage of equality.
Right.
No, for you not at bare minimum, we ain't gonna kill you. We ain't gonna give you nothing. We're not gonna treat you equal. We just not gonna kill you no more.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I'm gonna go to this last point on this first part, which we've already kind of touched on this, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. And that's, could all of this have been prevented, or was it inevitable? And what I think I'm hearing is that this was inevitable. It was bound to get to this point at some point.
Yeah, this was gonna happen, and like I said, it's gonna happen again. I hate to say it, but it's gonna happen again. But I think, well, I think it was what was the Aubrey, the young man that was killed, and I forgot what city in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't go off this bad, but I think that was like the start of the powder keg. And then once George Floyd came into the open, it set everybody off because he was hollering, he couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
But the other one was kind of foggy. You heard the gunshots, but it was kind of foggy.
Yeah.
This one was a little bit more clear, and it checked people off. I don't know if it's because it was just the police, because the one that killed the other young man in Georgia was just two standard white guys. But this one was the police, and I think that was the powder keg that tripped everybody off. So I think that it kept happening with the young lady that was in Louisville who was laying down. You know, now I, as a man, get worried sometimes. I'm laying down at night. Is somebody gonna bust in my house on an accident? Do I need to go? I'm not a gun owner, but do I need to get a gun? I don't know.
Yes.
And I go to sleep.
The answer is yes.
Because
Exercise your right.
I understand exercise that. Yeah, I just got a wife who said she don't want no gun in the house. When you married, you gotta
keep it in the house.
Yeah.
Hey, with everything going on.
I can't keep it in the house. I gotta keep it in the house. So
you better go back and watch Rosewood, brother.
Who knows if they're gonna mistake your house for a drug house or something? Right. They bust in at 2 a.m. and it's dark, we can't see nothing, and they start shooting. And then they say, oh, it was an accident, because I don't believe anybody was arrested for killing that young lady everybody was talking about Friday. Yeah. They just said, oh, it was an accident, too bad. So I don't know, Nate. I think just things keep piling up. And I think that if it happens again with a police officer, it could get worse. I think the protesting could get worse. I think it's going to get worse on America. So I think this has brought, I think white folks are very smart when it comes to making moves. You guys said it with the corporate setting, with jobs and everything. I think they're going to try to find another way to go after black people, but I think they're going to be smart enough not to try to mess with you and try to kill you on video. I just think they're going to try to find a different way that we won't be able to see it because they scared. They said, man, if we kill another black guy, what's going to happen next?
But what can I jump in on this one too? I mean, history has been repeating itself over the past 400 years. But let's even start to the age of the camera phone. You know, we just watched Eric Garner because everybody's like, well, what's different about George Floyd? Nothing. I mean, Eric Garner was murdered in the middle of the street while people watched it, and we had video on it.
Right.
And then with this, you know, I don't celebrate arrests. No, we arrested 4 people. On Rodney King, almost 29 years ago, coming up on 30 years ago, some random person was in the bushes and caught him on tape being beat. Right. And then how did we get to the point arrested with no conviction?
Right.
And that's the same thing. George Zimmerman is making money off of murdering somebody. Like, we've gotten to this point before. There's no conviction. And I think until we make this a hate crime, because you hate people, and you send police officers to jail forever for doing stuff like this, it's the same logic they're using to deter kingpins and drug dealers. We have to use that logic to help stop kill black people.
I agree.
Right.
Go ahead, Trace.
Oh, no, I was just saying, yeah, I agree with that. And it's funny because I know that I think, yes, they could have been prevented. If with acknowledgement, back to my original point, and honesty, regardless of if anything changed, I think things could have been prevented. But you know, the whole is just so deep about what's been put in front of us. I don't see another way. I guess changes come without like outpour of what of like what's going on right now. So